have a lot of nerve coming near me again. I'm still sore from what you did to me.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
Well, I need to punch a dragon, dear viewer. I've played some monk builds before, but what about an evil monk, a punching master willing to harness anger, resentment and fear of the people of Skyrim to cause as much chaos as possible. One that acts as a hero for purely egoistical reasons, slays dragons and some dragon priests just to prove he's better than them. Intimidating, unstoppable and cruel in physical combat. Well, this here fellow is exactly that. I was a bit inspired by Tom Hardy in that movie nobody really likes anymore.
Victory has defeated you.
I would say the character itself is fine, that Tom Hardy's character, especially as an inspiration for punching things in a video game. The build is about unarmed combat and mind control, a combination I don't think I have tried before. The goal was to be both agile and also tough as nails, so that you get a character that can move fast, avoid damage, as well as take it to the chest and endure. And then, with a few illusion spells, he can also cause plenty of chaos and even let the enemies wipe each other out. It's quite nice in the early game. A single cast of Fury can make an otherwise hard fight much easier, and Calm was used to punch a foe down with no resistance from them. A build like this is mostly doable without mods, but I've been wanting to try a mod for blocking in unarmed combat for quite some time now, so I am doing it here. The block perks, including shield charge, actually make this character pretty much the combo of agility and toughness I had in mind initially. And there are a few other mods used. Advanced Unarmed Combat is the one I am using for fist blocking. It has a little compatibility patch on its download page on the Nexus with Vokrii. With this patch, most of the unarmed perks in Vokrii will work in defensive stance, so when you can block with your left hand, and in offensive, so when you fight like in vanilla. Sadly, Advanced Unarmed also requires both Sky UI and Script Extender. You can probably find a similar mod without such requirements, but I'm not sure if it can work with Vokrii as well as this one. Vokrii is of course for the light armor perks, improving your unarmed combat. Classic Classes was used for the Monk class, mostly because it grants you the ability called Martial Arts, which improves your unarmed damage with levels. Combined with those Vokrii perks, it means we don't really need any exploits or any Fortify unarmed items at all to make the build functional and enjoyable even on Master and Legendary difficulties. Most of the video is recorded on Master because faster fights look cooler. I also employed two excellent spell mods, Odin Magic Overhaul and Triumvirate Mage Archetypes. We are limited to low level spells with this build, but even those can be quite powerful in these two mods. Actually, the unofficial patch is quite useful too. I wanted to be able to shout a lot using many different shouts and also to wear a dragon priest mask to look like an evil villain. Well, with this patch, the Morokai mask has a shout cooldown reduction on top of its ample Magicka regeneration effect. Magicka regeneration will also offset our standing stone. And the looks, yeah, there is some extra downloading to do. If you want to look like in the video, I took some time to combine bits from a few mods and landed on these two: Fur Armor Set and Modular Clothing System. The fur coat on my shoulders is from Fur Armor Set. It reminds me of that Bane jacket and that's the main reason. Then I used a few bits from Modular Clothing System, which is a weird and rather heavy mod, but it allows you to compose your own outfit from many different little bits. A belt and a baldric, for example. Then I also remembered about the Nord Scout armor. The gauntlets from this set are fingerless and look really worn, which is what I wanted. Nord Scout armor is from Creation Club. If you play on Anniversary Edition, it is already included. I also covered a bit of clipping at my back with an adventurer's backpack, also a creation included in Anniversary Edition. This way it all looks almost like a pre-made set, if you don't look too close. The race is the Red Guard. The adrenaline power was quite useful early on, as the dual power attacks with fists have some really unreasonable stamina cost. I also haven't played a Red Guard in a while, and the idea of this fantasy magic Tom Hardy coming from a desert seems sort of appealing. For efficiency, it would probably be best to go with an Orc. A Nord could be nice too, because of frost resistance, and a High Elf would make the magic side of the build much easier to manage. The attribute ratio is weird! 1 magicka per 4 health per 2 stamina. This is the spread for the full level 50 build, but you should go for a more even spread until you have at least 200 magicka and stamina. With some enchantments and alchemy, this is going to be quite enough for your needs, especially with Tonal Harmony perk, which heals all 3 attributes each time you shout, and you do shout often. Unarmed combat perks will make your stamina spending way more reasonable over time, and the Atronach stone paired with the ample magicka regeneration of Morokai should be good enough for your low magic needs. Yes, the standing stone is the Atronach. Holy crap, what a surprise. What? Would you believe someone actually found a use for this useless standing stone? Wow! And with the classic classes mod, of course, we also go with the Monk class. It will drop your light armor and illusion skills to 5, unfortunately. It can be a tad annoying until, say, level 10, but will get fixed swiftly and soon enough. There's quite a few skills to perk, but chief among them are light armor, illusion, speech block and alchemy. Then you have secondary skills that you can perk the same I did, or decide against some perks, and you should still be fine, depending on the difficulty and your preferences. Needless to say, we take absolutely every single perk for the unarmed combat that Vokrii kindly offers. These are all top priority, maybe except Key Strike. Iron Fist will grant you an increasing buff to damage derived from your stamina, so keep an eye out for 45 stamina items, and also make potions of stamina regeneration to keep the stat high. With Rushing Tide, punching things will also increase your stamina regeneration for a bit, and Flurry of Blows will decrease the stamina cost of unarmed power attacks, and even give you a chance to disarm enemies with a power attack, and a chance to stagger them. Mighty useful. Take it as early as you can. Training and Fit was also taken, of course, and with a little smithing, your armor rating should reach 400s or even more if you take Arcane Smithing and use some Fortified Smithing items. Then we also go up the right-hand branch, up to and including Evasive Sprint. It halves incoming damage when you sprint. It's quite useful when facing high-level magic enemies, because most of your item slots are used to enhance our combat abilities and magicka and stamina and such. Not so much room for resistances. I have alchemy for that, and become ethereal and resist elements spell perhaps, and 50% spell absorption, but all these options are not permanent and not perfectly reliable, so on master and legendary difficulties you may want to have an extra option. Especially that we eventually are going to be doing a lot of shield charge really often, and shield bashes, and send enemies flying, and this also eats away a lot of stamina. So we take the perks to your right in block, the block bashing ones, up to and including Dragon Tail. This one makes people explore space if you bash to interrupt their power attack. It even has a chance to disarm them. This plus shield charge plus Orc's strength spell from Odin means that you will be able to hurl enemies around with a well-timed bash, by sprinting into them and by power attacking. You will sprint and attack fast, which means plenty of flying enemies. Sometimes it just rains Draugr. Oh, and quick reflexes, right? Quick reflexes, it makes everything better. No need to advertise that. We enhance the combat style with speech, namely the shout enhancing perks. The build uses a lot of shouts, slow time, marked for death, Fusroda, and we do pretty much everything possible in vanilla and without exploits to cut down the shout cooldown timer. With these speech perks we will get some extra powers. We will get a 25% chance to reduce the cooldown to 3 seconds after shouting. Power attacks will cut down the cooldown too, and we power attack all the time. Tonal Harmony will heal all 3 attributes each time you shout by the amount equal to the shout's cooldown in seconds. Sadly, it is tied to the effective, not the basic cooldown time, so with your dramatic cooldown reduction, Tonal Harmony will become less and less useful over time. Early game though, it's going to be a wonderful healing panic button. Illusion was perked to raise the effective level of mind control spells as high as possible, so we mostly stick to low level spells like Calm and Fury. You could even consider dual casting, but as an alchemist I opted for Fortify Illusion potions to improve my mind control even further, if required. Odin, Magic Overhaul, also changes how it all works. The enemies of higher level than your spell would normally affect will actually have a chance to be affected. So the max level now means the enemies below it will always get affected, and of higher level will have a random chance to be affected. Also, I finally made a good use of the Lamp to the Slaughter perk. It invites a very cruel and vile approach to combat when you calm down enemies just to slay them defenseless and believing everything is perfectly fine. It reduces the armor rating of calmed enemies by 100 and magic resistance by 25%. This stacks with Stave of Ferocity, a Triumvirate spell that enhances your power attacks, making them reduce armor of your targets by 150 points and magic resistance by 25%. This also stacks with Marked for Death, which drains armor and health over time. So if you really want to mess up a tough enemy, just shout Marked for Death at them and then calm them down with a spell. You can now relax for a bit until some of their health is drained. Then use power attack with Stave of Ferocity on. Of course, Master of the Mind was taken to make this approach feasible against all kinds of foes. Alchemy requires only a few perks to become a game changer. Mastery, Benefactor, Slow Metabolism 1 and Stimulants. Stimulants make you regenerate stamina even faster, well, stamina and magicka even faster on performance enhancers, and it stacks with Agility perk in light armor, and it means we don't need to worry about stamina anymore, and it keeps our power attacks really efficient. Alchemy is also used to patch various holes in the build. As mentioned, I use it for magic and elemental resistance. I used stamina regeneration potions and Fortify stamina potions to further improve my power attacks. I use Fortify Illusion potions to make my low tier spells effective against high level enemies. By combining Morata Pinella, Dragon's Tongue and Fly Amanita, you can create a bombastic potion enhancing your stamina regeneration, fortifying your illusion spells and granting you fire resistance all at once. All 3 of those ingredients are quite easy to find too, so make a batch of these super potions whenever you can and remember to use them whenever you can. Well, whenever you need. If you are on Anniversary Edition or have an appropriate creation, you can also buy exotic ingredients from Khajiit caravans and use them to mix a spell absorption potion, which will stack with the Atronach stone, allowing a full 100% spell absorption. Real useful. there are also some skills with absolute bare minimum of perks. Alteration Mastery should be taken early so that you can use Stave of Ferocity and Orc's Strength easily. Arcane Blacksmith was taken to make Morokai more protective. Enchanting Mastery was taken so that my gear has some reasonable effects. And Sneak was used early to mid-game to surprise my foes and give me some time to cast Fury in peace. One cool thing to note about Sneak is that calming spells allow for some really easy sneak attacks. Enemies affected by Calm are not alerted. They lose track of you almost as soon as you crouch and move to stand behind them, which means with your excessive and messed up use of Calm, you can execute a lot of unsuspecting enemies this way. The gear is really simple. You use the Amulet of Talos and the Morokai, and the rest of the item slots go for handmade items improving your attributes. Yep, that's it. The combined power of our shouts and spells take care of all our other needs. However, this is a loadout for the complete build. Early on, you may consider another item with Magicka regeneration. Some Fortify Illusion maybe for the chest, and maybe some Fortify Unarmed for your ring and or gloves. For the frequently used spells, here's the list. Stave of Ferocity and Orc's Strength combined make you punch like a Superman at the cost of temporary Magicka reduction, which in our case is just fine. Before combat has started, you may need a bit more Magicka, because it would be useful to use Okato's spell Trigger to trigger Stave of Ferocity whenever a fight starts. Okato's spell Trigger is a rather expensive spell in terms of Magicka. You might want to use Fortify Magicka potions, or maybe even the Secret of Arcana Black Book power to cast spell Trigger for free. You have Calm and Fury, which I advise to use in the opening stage of combat, but another great opener is a combo of Gather Shadows and Darkness. Gather Shadows makes you punch harder in darkness, and darkness, when cast on an enemy, makes darkness around them. After all, they merely adopted the dark. You were born in it, molded by it. And shouts! I wanted to make good use of them here. One word Become Ethereal is a perfect counter to magic attacks. With your cooldown reductions, you are off cooldown before the effect runs out, so you can always negate incoming Dragon Breath. Dragon Aspect was used. I would imagine it's quite obvious why. It makes everything better for a bit. And Will I used mostly on NPCs, so 2 words may be quite enough. This makes enemies into friends, and you enjoy watching these suckers die for you. And of course, Marked for Death used as often as possible. It's best used right before a Calm spell is cast on the same target. Now they have no armor rating, are weaker to magic, and just stand there awaiting their demise. And of course, Slow Time. Slow Time is as useful as always. Here I mostly used it to execute a pitch-perfect shield charge against multiple enemies, but there are other uses, of course. So that's the way. We have punching, we have mind control, we have flying enemies, we have low-level spells used efficiently for all of the playthrough, we have plenty of shouts, and we look like someone who could defeat a bear with his bare hands. Except it's not just looks, we can actually bear a fight with any bear barehanded. It's barely an inconvenience. Sorry, I know I can be unbearable sometimes. Bear with me. Right. It's all over. It's over. The video is over. Go hurt something in Skyrim. Bye-bye.